Well, hello everybody. So sorry. I am very late. I don't think I've ever been this late for a video, but you don't need to know the real background. But how about this? A busted water pipe and a gas leak all in the same day, which meant the power had to be turned off in case I blew the house up. Anyway, I'm here alone, and there's a lot to talk about. This is where I typically recap all the crazy stuff that happened during the week, and I'll make this fast. It's been a long day. I haven't even showered. So anyway, let's get into it. And of course, not financial advice. Thank you to everybody on Patreon. Let's talk about where we are so far. January, Bitcoin is up 11.5%. Not bad. Again, Q1 of the year after a bull market year is normally pretty good. So still very high expectations. But what I do want to talk about is the crazy amount of new stuff that has happened this week. And I've got the slides are completely out of sync, but let me get to this one first. I did warn you this is going to be rough and ready. Biggest news. Well, there's so much big news this week, but one, in case you didn't hit it, just hit the wires literally 20 hours ago. BlackRock just filed for in-kind redemption for IBIT Bitcoin ETF. This would allow investors, of course, to not only deposit Bitcoin into the ETF, but also withdraw Bitcoin. No more moving to fiat. Fiat dead. And why? Why do we care about this? Well, if in-kind does happen. Now, I'm not a tax accountant, but I do know if the asset doesn't change, but it's just moved around from custody to custody, technically, again, I'm not sure of this, but no tax event would be triggered, which could imply the transactions might not trigger capital gains tax that are associated with selling assets. So imagine you're sitting on Bitcoin for a long time and you don't want to self-custody anymore. You want to move it over to BlackRock and you could stick it there. Again, no tax impact. And then you could decide a year later, okay, I feel more confident with self-custody right now. I'm feeling better, and pull it back out. Again, no tax trigger. That is kind of huge news. Now, hopium hit of the week. This guy from Pantera Capital, Dan Moorhead, believes Bitcoin is going to $745,000. This is 2 days after Larry Fink said Bitcoin's going to $700,000. Andy, thank you so much in Australia. And hello, everybody there for turning up. Sorry for being late. But that is the hopium hit of the day. But there's more, okay? Obviously, we know that interest rates going down are very important. Larry Fink did say at the WEF, the Fed has room to cut rates. And that's probably going to happen. I'll get back to that in a minute as well. Slides are completely out of order. Again, random day. But Saylor came out too, on top of the good news from Dan Moorhead from Pantera and Larry Fink. Then Saylor said every billionaire will have to buy Bitcoin. And the supply shock will be so great that we will stop measuring Bitcoin in terms of fiat. Woohoo! Bitcoin bull, thank you for coming. I've been talking about supply shock for quite some time. And who knows if it's going to be here. And speaking of Michael Saylor, guess what? MicroStrategy tops the convertible bond issuers ever in the history of the world. You can see how far they're nearly double the number 2 player, which is Delivery Hero, which I never heard of, by the way. Anyway, but the crazy thing about this MicroStrategy convertible bond issuance, not only did Michael Saylor say, okay, billionaires will have to start buying Bitcoin. Larry says it's going to 700,000. Dan Moorhead says it's going to 745,000. But MicroStrategy, their leverage right now is way short of 25%. You can see here where they are. And MicroStrategy are going to redeem billions of more of these convertibles to buy more Bitcoin. Again, assuming no more Bitcoin buys, for example, before the conversion at today's price of 105K approximately. The leverage ratio is 13%. And MicroStrategy has 7.5 times as many assets as they do liabilities. So the balance sheet is clearing up for more leverage, which means lots of Bitcoin buying in 2025 and 2026 and on from there. Now, speaking of Bitcoin, we have to look at this. You know, I look a lot at options, and there are nearly $8 billion worth of Bitcoin options set to expire at the end of the month. And a lot of them are out of the money. In fact, if you blow this up, you see the big green spike there. That's 111 grand, 122,000, 140,000. A lot of these we're hoping to make money, but unless the Bitcoin price goes up that high in the next 4 or 5 days, they're going to expire worthless. And that's $8 billion out of the money. $6 or $8 billion roughly, which is a truckload. Now, this is a shout out to Willy Woo as well. He talked about capital inflows have started to flow back into Bitcoin again. And what's crazy is, yes, a lot of money has been flowing into Bitcoin, but the price has been chopping sideways, which means coins are being accumulated, but the price is not going up. Either way, Willy Woo believes it's a very good setup to explore all-time highs if the capital inflows follow this week. So it's just a matter of time before we break out above 109K, 110K, and then onwards from there. But the price has had kind of a weird lid on it lately too. Now, other huge news that we have to talk about. You know, I always say risk happens fast, but now every single bank in the United States can now custody crypto and play with crypto and use crypto for payments and borrowing against it, etc. It is absolutely insane how fast this has happened. Every single major bank in the United States is now scrambling to be able to do this service. They need a new revenue stream, and they're all going to do it. And speaking of not just this, but also this other area, this is from Watcher Guru from Binance. CZ founder says all governments should track all their spending on the blockchain and in an immutable public ledger. Sound familiar? Yep. And, you know, in the past, there was a lot of public spending done by governments and the Pentagon and stuff. Nobody knows what the money is spent on or where it goes or how much is wasted. But that's all about to change, according to CZ. But not just him. This fellow, the head of DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, believes the same thing. Everybody should be able to track everything on the blockchain. This is the future. This is going to happen. The question is, we don't know when. We don't know when it's going to happen. Now, a couple of things real quick I want to get to. First of all, this. Solana. I talk a lot about winning assets on this channel, so don't be offended if you don't like Solana. But now, Solana is streets ahead of everybody else across the board and getting faster. It is the leader in fees. It's the far leader in DEX volume. It is the far biggest leader in network effects and daily active users. It has the most protocol revenue. It's got the most economic security, has the most transaction volume, and the most application revenue. It is absolutely insane, and it's streets ahead of everything else. Again, winner takes most. That's how the world works. Also, this is kind of cool. With the Gary G toad gone, things are happening fast. Not just for the BlackRocks of the world, but also for other assets. And Grayscale filed their new Solana spot ETF with New York Stock Exchange. But there's more related to that story. Let's jump into it right now, if I can find it. First, volumes are accelerating. This is just daily volume yesterday. Solana, 13.2 billion. People said, oh, Solana's only making money because of some meme coin. No, it's consistent. And you can see it's 4 times what Ethereum does, nearly 5 times what Binance is doing, and nearly 13 times what Arbitrum is doing. And Base actually has shriveled up again. Base was hot for a while, and Arbitrum was shriveling up, and now Arbitrum's coming back, so it's good to see that happening. And people say Sui is the Solana killer. Yeah, no. 13.22 billion Solana versus 264 million Sui. So again, sometimes things come and go, but sometimes there's a clear leader, and that's where we are now. And in full disclosure, I do have a small Sui position. In addition, Solana is now, for the first time ever in the history of the world, beating ETH. The title's wrong. Sol beating Sol. No, Sol beating ETH in stablecoin growth for the first time in history. It's doing more, and it's going to continue, which is insane. In addition, Sol ETF, I did speak about it earlier in the week that the futures are coming, and right after the futures come the spot. Now, per Polymarket, there's now an 89%, 90% chance that the Solana spot ETF is coming in 2025, and then things are really going to take off. Now, speaking of Solana, there's one other thing I need to talk about, and that is this. Jupiter, Istanbul, day one highlights. There's so much happening right now. I didn't really have time to catch up with it in great detail, but I saw some high-level notes, and I jotted them down briefly. So they have huge product updates. They announced a host of product new features and enhancements. They have Jupiter Spot V2. They have now perp limit orders, which I've been waiting for ages. They have a thing called Ultra Mode, which basically is something around real-time slippage and dynamic priority fees for optimized transaction landing for power users, which sounds pretty cool. Have yet to use it. And they bought a majority stake in Moonshot, alongside other significant investments in Web3 brands. And they launched Eliza OS AI and a whole bunch more. It's pretty incredible. It's a very, very interesting project, and it is now my number one Sol altcoin. Now, a little bit of macro news that happened this week too. Not all just the SAB 121 and all the great news about Bitcoin custody by banks, and US will build a crypto treasury. We're not sure what it's going to look like or when it's going to happen, but this is big. Argentina, which is on the verge of bankruptcy for decades, all of a sudden got their credit rating raised by Moody's. A shout out to Javier Milei. That guy has turned this country around in just the space of 14 months, and other countries are taking note and watching what they are doing as well. Massive, massive result. People doubted him, but no, he's wicked smart. Just like Bukele in El Salvador too. In addition, a lot of people are always worried about this Solana unlock. It's been like a big cloud above the heads of people. But just to put things in perspective, the total Solana unlock up until the next 4 months or so is only 2.5% of supply. It's not a huge event that's going to cripple everything. And when you compare it to other tokens, it's nothing out of the ordinary. In fact, it's considered relatively small compared to other assets. Anyway, that unlock is coming. I don't think it'll have a big impact on price, other than the usual slopping around that it does every single day. In addition, a little bit of other macro news. Home sales in the United States are at the lowest level in 30 years. Nothing is happening in the market because rates are too high. But it's not just homes are not selling. Auto loans are being crushed. The people that repossess vehicles have no capacity anymore to repossess vehicles, and nobody's able to pay for their cars. Nearly 7% of auto loans now are 60 days past delinquent, which is insane. And you bring this back to what will happen to rates that I mentioned at the very beginning. A reporter asked this fellow, "Do you expect the Fed will listen to you?" And Trump just said, yeah. So rate cuts are coming in. Not only does Larry Fink think it, this guy thinks it too. And the economy is destroyed. The labor market is in a world of hurt despite the numbers that the government posts. That's all going to change. Hopefully things will be much more transparent and on the blockchain in the future, and the data will be reliable. That's my quick story today. I will be back tomorrow at noon Pacific as best I can, provided I've got electricity, for the weekly Q&A. Thank you all for coming. Pardon my dust. Literally, it was a disastrous day. Gas leak, water pipe exploding, both happening on the same day is kind of unreal. But I want to thank all of you for coming, everybody, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Have a good night.